Hello and welcome to Outdoor Instructor Chat. My name is Niall from Instructor 101 for outdoor instructors that want to make an even bigger impact on those that they work with. In this episode, I was joined by Darren Clarkson-King from Pure Land Expeditions. It was an absolute blast doing this Outdoor Instructor Chat with him, so a huge thanks to Darren for taking part. As always, I'll make sure there's links to everything that we discussed in the show notes. But all that aside, there was a point where we just got carried away and just forgot that we were doing an Outdoor Instructor Chat or podcast. So apologies later on in the show. We're just enjoying ourselves. It does get back on track. But things that we covered his experiences paddling down the rivers on Mount Everest and K2, how he knew that he was ready to do those trips, what were the scariest parts, how to spot an outdoor instructor, working in media, and of course the quick-fire-ish questions. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get started.
Yeah, all good. All right, cool. Hello and welcome to Outdoor Instructor Chat. So today I'm joined by Darren Clarkson-King. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat, Darren. I really appreciate it.
Hey guys. Hello everybody. How's cyber world?
That's it. So Darren, do you want to first of all take a moment just to introduce yourself, tell people where they can find you, and then we'll take it from there, mate.
Okay, right, introduce myself. 44-year-old Yorkshireman. I work pretty much full time in the outdoors. I do quite a bit of kayaking. You can find me online at my company, purelandexpeditions.com, if I'm allowed to say that. But if you put my name into Google, it'll give you a load of other options as well. So bang my name into Google, which makes me sound like a big deal, but it's probably not true, and I've probably paid for a lot of AdWords so that I'm at the top of the ranking. But
no big deal.
Like I say, you can find me at purelandexpeditions.com or PLA and me on Instaspam, same as Twitter, which I don't go on very often. Facebook, you can probably find me on there as well if you wanted. Like I say, I do loads of kayaking, live in North Wales now, but should be in the Himalayas. If you go to Barnes and Noble, which I think they're a bookshop, you can probably ask the people about books I've written as well. That might help.
Yeah.
Is that all right for you?
Yeah, 100%. So, so I was saying to Darren just before we started. So, I was kind of introduced to Darren through a concept, from a previous person that we did a podcast with called Mike Ryder. So, thanks to Mike for helping to introduce and set this up. But I remember going, oh, okay, cool. So, and then messaged you and just like, oh yeah, I can see you've got a bit of experience. And then I didn't realize how much of an understatement that really was. Not just because of your AdWords experience.
I've got no AdWords experience. I'm 44, I'm not a digital native.
So yeah, when you do type Darren's name into Google, loads of different things come up, and yeah, I kind of went, oh wow, there's so many different things that we could talk about. So things there's a list, so I've got it written down in front of me. So adventurer, expedition provider, river consultant, writer, inspirational speaker. You're creating a podcast, doing YouTube as well, and you run Pure Land Expeditions. Yeah. So yeah, I went through that really fast, but that's a lot of stuff, which is amazing, really, really cool.
It just fills a word count on the blog, though, doesn't it? Really. You know, when you take. I'm joking.
Who's making the understatements now?
Yeah, I've done quite a bit now.
Yeah. No. Well, obviously, one of the big things that comes up consistently is your solo descents, as well as your descents of K2, all the rivers on K2, and all the rivers on Everest as well.
Ooh.
Yeah. So.
We talk about that.
Yeah, well, if you wouldn't mind, I feel like a lot of the paddlers listening will be like, wow, that's incredible. They'd want to know what it's like, but also what inspired you to do that? Because that's something which some people would never dream of the idea of doing that, let alone putting it into action.
Okay then.
Yeah, I just thought so. Fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I'll do it as succinctly as possible, because if I keep talking a lot about these trips, then people will miss it because they'll have to go to the toilet and sleep. So I will make it succinct. Right. When I was a kid, there was a kayaking movie doing the rounds in the days when Betamax was king.
Okay.
But it was filmed on I think it was filmed on Super 8, and it was the canoeing down Everest, Mike Jones, Mick Hopkinson, Mamby, and those guys. And I remember watching it at school. And when I first went to Nepal 20 years ago, the Dudkosi was a river that I wanted to do, but I was never quite good enough. A couple of years, 2 years after my first trip to Nepal, when I'd done some first descent stuff, I went and did the Aran Gorges, which is off the back of Everest. Sort of flows off the back of Everest, curls around and drops into Nepal. That's quite hard. It's like a 6-day walk in, 6-day paddle out, class 5+ gorge. And that was at the height of the civil unrest in Nepal, and we got caught up by Maoist terrorists and held at gunpoint and knife point, and that was pretty sketch. And then the year after that, I did the Dudkosi, which we flew into. You fly into Lukla, then you walk to base camp and you put on and you paddle out. 3-day paddle out, 3-day portage, 3-day paddle, and then you hit the Sunkosi and you paddle down. That's those two rivers in brief, right? And then the 2004 maybe, where I went to Pakistan with my friend, Mr. Crazy Dave, who doesn't like his real name mentioned in media channels because he gets friend requests off people and he doesn't like social media. But if you want to find him, his name's Dave Thompson, and he'll really hate it if you friend request him. So if you find him on Facebook, Dave Thompson, right, he's got a profile picture of him as a skeleton, and he'll just hate it if people like to friend request him for no obvious reason. So anyway, me and Dave went to Pakistan. I did a load of stuff in Pakistan. Paddled the Braldu on the back of, which is off K2. The Braldu is the fastest river I have ever paddled. Insanely big volume, bigger than the Stikine, bigger than the Alsek, Turnback, just huge. We were there in September, which was probably a bit foolish. And then we went to Nepal and did some more first descents back in 2004. So that's the Everest and K2 super quickly. Now, the slow version of that is, when was it? Somebody can Google this. When did I do the solo trip on Everest? Just Google it for me because I can't remember. Right, but I'd been working in Nepal. I'd just done a season out in Nepal guiding with Pure Land, and I got back to Britain, and it's 4 a.m. and I'm jet lagged.
Yep.
And you know when you're jet lagged, I mean, those days when we can remember flying people, because obviously flying's not a thing now, is it? It's a thing of history. We don't allow to do it anymore. But I was jet lagged 4 a.m. in my little cottage in Wales where I am now. And I turned Facebook on. 4 a.m. Berghaus are doing a competition. If you can write an expedition plan and it wins vote, like a peer vote, then they'll fund it and they'll give you a grand's worth of kit.
Wow, okay.
And this is before Berghaus became just that sort of clothing you'd go to the indoor market in, and buy your stuff, like your crab sticks and your frozen peas, when Berghaus had decent gear. But I basically wrote a premise of an expedition that said I would go to Nepal, fly to Lukla, walk up to Namche Bazaar, get on the Dudkosi, solo paddle the Dudkosi, onto the Sunkosi, down the Sunkosi, hike up the Aran, paddle the Aran and finish at the Indian border. 21-day self-support trip. The trip itself is documented online and on YouTube, but it was, because I was by myself, I paddled 13-hour days. So I did the first 3 days in a day and a half. The portage took me 2 days. I did the last 3 days in a day and a half. Then I did the Sunkosi section, which should have taken me 3 days in a day. The Aran, there's a road now up the Aran, so I didn't have a 6-day walk. I managed to do it in a day and a half on the road. And then the 6-day paddle out I did in, first sleep was in the jungle, a big portage. Second sleep was river left near Tumlingtar. 2.5 days for a 6-day class 5+ gorge, and then made it to the beach, collapsed in the sand, and then had egg and chips at my local restaurant. Well, I say my local restaurant, the restaurant at the bottom in Charter, egg and chips, so that's really quickly, isn't it? Those trips. I can rattle on about, Maoist terrorists and guerrilla civil war and not wanting to swim, and how I really wish that I didn't set fire to my thermarest on night one, and how you should never take a £2.50 sleeping bag from Tesco's to Everest base camp and all that sort of stuff. But I won't, because that's for another time.
I love how it's how blasé that all sounds, but it really if anyone's watching this, they'll probably watch my facial expressions going, what? Really?
You want to know what's really blasé about it?
It's really, really exciting, and I just love obviously you're trying to get through it for a reason. I understand that, and I appreciate that as well. But I just love it, yeah, and then this happened, and this happened, and then I just cruise down this.
I cruise down that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the scariest part of the whole trip though? Was coming back to Britain.
Really?
Yeah. So because I'd done the trip so quick.
Yeah.
I was supposed to take 21 days, and I'd actually done it a lot quicker because I paddled 12, 13-hour days when I did the solo. So when I landed at Heathrow, I changed my flight. I'm landing a week earlier, and I had no one to pick me up in Heathrow, so I was getting the train back to Wales, which is a long way from Heathrow.
Yeah.
It's not really a long way. When you're flying halfway around the world, it's not that long, is it? But, it is quite difficult.
Yeah.
But I'd left all my gear in Kathmandu because I frequent Kathmandu a lot. So I left all my gear in Kathmandu. And all I had was a day sack. And in my day sack, I had a load of copies of Whitewater Nepal Guidebook, 3rd edition, by myself and Peter Knowles, which is published out in Kathmandu. So I had a big stack of those. And I had my down jacket, and that was it. That's all the luggage I had. So
okay.
I land in Heathrow. I've got flip-flops on, a pair of shorts and a scruffy t-shirt, and fly back via Qatar, land in London, and get the train. And the train, I had to change in Birmingham International Station.
Sure.
But I fell asleep on the train, and I woke up in Wolverhampton, which is fine, except Wolverhampton was the end of the line because it was 1 a.m.
Okay, yeah.
So I then spent the night on Wolverhampton train station platform in flip-flops, shorts, and my down jacket. It would have been end of March, start of April. My feet had been cut to ribbons on the trip, so that was why I had flip-flops on. So I had big bleeding sores on my feet, and I was pacing that platform until the morning commuter train at 6 o'clock started. And then, to make matters even worse, I got on the morning commuter train looking like I look like a homeless Santa anyway, but looking a little bit like this dirty old homeless wizard. And I must have stunk. I think I'd had the t-shirt on about 3 weeks. And then I remember changing trains in Barmouth, in Wales, just maybe Mac, and coppering up in my pocket, looking for any English money in my pocket. Yep. And I'm just coppering up and going, I can afford a cup of tea off this tea trolley as it comes round. That's all I can afford.
Yeah.
And when the train stopped in Penryn, which is the next village from me, I didn't have enough money to get a taxi, or enough charge on my phone to phone a taxi to get home, to then get a cash card that worked, to then pay. So I had to walk home in the rain, and I remember that, and not been a pleasant return back to Britain.
Yeah, what a welcome back as well.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and having done all that as well, and then people will not be able to understand, or go what's happened, what's your story, and then you see you walking down the road at the end as well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's full on. It's full on everything, even just that small bit, which
it's all about planning, isn't it? You've got to plan properly, otherwise you just end up failing. And when you don't plan your train journey back,
was it the goal is always to end up getting back home safely at the end of the day, isn't it? So yeah, we just forgot the very last bit of actually the transport.
Yeah. And having enough money and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. So with all that, like, there's a lot of stuff there which, like, for me personally, I'm going to struggle to relate to, or if anything, which any like comparisons that I can draw are going to be like very different, very different. So, how do you get to a point where you know that you're ready for a trip like that?
Okay. So how do you know that you're ready to do a solo trip in the wilderness in the Himalayas? You know because you've got jet lag, and when you write the proposal, you don't think for a minute that Berghaus are going to accept it. And then when Berghaus do accept it, you don't think you've probably got enough friends on social media to help you win that. And I actually don't think I've got enough friends. I think I've got enough people that hate me, that didn't want me to come back. So I've just, I'm a grumpy Yorkshireman and people just wanted rid of me. Also, it was only £1,000 in cash from Berghaus, which paid for the trip. But if I was sharing that with somebody else, that's 500 quid each, and I'm a Yorkshireman, and I was never sharing £1,000. So that's no, I'm obviously joking. No, how do you get to that? I do a lot of. I hate to say it because it is, and I don't think this is a forum for it, but I do a lot of solo paddling, and it gives me quite a lot of mental and emotional release, and it gives me a different sense of the river and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I knew those rivers from years previous, so when I did get to them. When I was on the solo trip, I knew the rapids. I could remember, even though the rapids I'd done years before, I could remember them. So I didn't scout as much as perhaps I should have done. And when I did scout, if I got out of my boat to scout, then I walked. I portaged.
Yeah.
So if it had to be really... So I did end up portaging some class 2. Because as soon as I got out to scout, I put my boat on my shoulder. And I ended up running some class 5 plus because I could see the bottom. But it's not for everyone, and it really isn't for everyone. And I'm not saying you should definitely, book yourself a trip and end up in the middle of nowhere. But should you go out and do stuff that pushes you? Yeah, you probably should.
Yeah.
And it might just be you need to go on that longer walk that you've only ever walked, say 10 mile in your life. Maybe you should start pushing it to 20, or maybe you want to go bivvying. You've seen people set up bivvies, just a bivvy bag or a tarp, and you think, oh, I'd be scared of doing that. Maybe you should push yourself and go somewhere safe within your personal risk assessment, and maybe get into a woods and set up and do a day camp. And then if you like it, sleep over. If you don't like it, walk back to your car and go home. There's no shame in that at all.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think for a lot of outdoor instructors, in my mind, I think they do that. But I think it's good to reflect and actually go, what am I doing? Like, because a lot of people are asking or guiding people in situations where they're pushing themselves out of their own comfort zones, and what might be for them pushing themselves might, well, probably not pushing you, but we should try and make sure that we're reminding ourselves about what it is that we're asking others to do as well.
I mean, if we look at what's happened due to COVID, when we as outdoor professionals stopped working, because most of us stopped working, some of us were lucky enough to do online work or whatever that may be, but most of us have stopped working. I think it's pretty foolish to be able to go back into work, or back into recreation in our chosen disciplines, and expect us to be at the same level we left at 12 weeks ago. I think that's just foolish.
Yeah.
Because we've had 12, 13 weeks or whatever it may be where we've not done that. And while physically we might be as fit, we might have been lucky enough to live in a place where we've been out to exercise. We're not in a city. Maybe we don't live in tower blocks or apartment blocks where we can't exercise. Maybe we live in the countryside where we can get out and exercise in green spaces. So we might still be physically fit, but we might not be emotionally fit enough to go back in and climb that hard route, or do that ultra run, or do that kayaking trip on that river that pushed us 14 weeks ago. We might not be able to go back in at the same level. And we have to be gentle to ourselves a little bit and just take our time to reassess what's important to us.
Yeah. You know what? I think we touched on there is something that, yeah, I know it's often said, isn't it? Like, okay, you can see someone's physical health and you can measure that really, or it's more easy to measure that, but the mental health is harder to recognize. And you're talking there about whether we're mentally able to go back in head first at exactly the same pace or rate as we would have having a gap as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have to be aware that for a lot of people, and the people we work with that come on trips or activities with us, as long as our fellow coaches and guides and instructors, we've all had a different experience during this COVID time. Completely different experience. For a lot of us, our lives have been turned upside down, but for other people, they're reassessing how they interact with the natural world now. Maybe they've spent time prior to COVID where they've been pubs, restaurants, shopping malls, multiplex cinemas, and they've not experienced camping or the outdoors, hiking, climbing, and now they're looking to get into that. So it's almost like, even as instructors, we have to sit back and go, okay, we've got a generation of people that are coming in that have never experienced it. And then similarly, we may have spent the last 12 weeks looking at Netflix.
Yeah.
I'm sure other streaming services are available, I believe, but
So I hear.
So I hear. So we'll probably be looking at that, or we might even be looking at YouTube or listening to podcasts or playing about on Startbook or whatever it is we're doing. And we need to sort of gauge where we are in relation to what matters to us personally, not what the world wants us to be like. I mean, at my age, I can sort of see influencers in social media channels, quite obvious. You've got your people that are all slick and super fit and they're wearing nice product and they're doing trail runs or living in vans or whatever that may be. But the reality of that is that actually, if you're living in a van, you're probably pissing in a bucket and wearing the same pants for a week. And that down jacket that the influencer's wearing, you could never afford. You're wearing something that's 5-10 years old, and that's fine. And you're, in the old days of guiding and instructing, all the good guides were torn down or torn buffalo jackets and beat up old trousers and all smoked roll-ups. Yep. Slept in hedges, and then it progressed and people had vans and slept in the vans, and now people have holiday accommodation or whatever that may be. And you see good coaches, good guides you can spot them a mile off because they've all got satchel bags and Patagonia gilets. And if you wear Patagonia gilet and have got a satchel bag, then you're probably good at what you do. That sounds like the uniform. I'm joking because obviously I've got Patagonia gilet myself and a satchel bag. But gone is the outdoor professional that sleeps in a hedge after drinking 12 pints of Theakston's.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I don't think I've actually recognised this or noticed this for a while. Obviously, we're still doing this and we're talking in July, but I haven't seen for a long, long time the down jacket, which is just covered in bits of duct tape.
Yeah. You just don't see it, and you don't see the person that's got the buffalo jacket where they've sat too close to a fire at some point or slept and it just burnt one arm or burnt the chest and the pile sticking out. You just don't see that anymore. People tend to update the product, but that's a discussion for another time. We are now professionals in the industry, and we have to look professional.
Yeah.
We have a uniform that differentiates us from the people that come on our journeys with us. We can walk into any bar in the outdoor town, and we can spot other guides because of the way we're dressed.
Yeah.
And some of the guides, and I'm using guide generically for instructor and outdoor professional. Some of them will still have, torn Altberg boots on with, glue holding them together and a set of, old pants on and stuff. But a lot of outdoor professionals do look smart and tidy, and that's a good thing for the industry, I think.
Yeah. Times have changed, and even in like the short time that I've been in the industry, like you can tell. I don't know this. I'm going off script a little bit here, but just staying on that theme for a little bit. was once told that if I was to say if I was guiding on the river, that whoever's running or leading the trip should be the best dressed out on the water. I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Would you agree with that, or would you go?
Right. So it's interesting. So when I'm working in the Himalayas,
Yeah,
and I'm going to say Western paddlers, but in the Western paddlers, I also mean Russian paddlers and Eastern Europeans. And what I mean is not Nepalian, not Bhutanese, and not Indian.
sure.
It tends to be the visiting paddlers with the older gear, the more beat up gear, that are the better paddlers. If you see paddlers walking around town, it tends to be the guys that have got duct tape holding the shorts together and are wearing chacos or even bare feet and have got dirty t-shirts on and torn t-shirts. They are the better paddlers than the guys on the river that have got matching palm or the latest boat. You can always spot a good visiting paddler, especially in Nepal, if they're using a boat from like a decade ago.
Yeah.
That's just held together with duct tape and dental floss sort of thing, and just paddling it really well. You can sort of, but a lot of those guys have been, a lot of the historical guides in the Himalayas have been there for a long time, and they're using boats that they've always used there. They're not flying a boat in every season. They're using a boat they've had there for 10 years. They've not changed it. Obviously, you have to raise questions if they're using a 10-year-old life jacket, buoyancy aid, but if they're using modern gear and it's just a bit tired and some bleached or torn and patched up, then that's fine, isn't it?
Yeah. No, you're so right. Okay, yeah. So going on this, we're talking a little bit about comfort zones and like just pushing yourself, but like, and going back to some of the stuff that you're talking about initially about your own adventures,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm sure this must, again, theme being an understatement. Like, so there must have been times where you've been like uncomfortable, like even just like going back to to land in Blighty. Like then you went, okay, cool. Like this is uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are points throughout that whole experience which would have been uncomfortable as well, I imagine. So like, would you say that's like something to be expected for those that just work in the outdoors?
No, it doesn't need to be, does it? It doesn't need to be. Like, stuff doesn't need to be. We're doing this for fun, aren't we? Or work. If you do it for work and you do it for fun, you've got to enjoy it, aren't you? You can't be uncomfortable, can you? There's no point in using a £2.50 Tesco sleeping bag. No, it reminds me of a joke, actually. There's a sadist and a masochist in bed. And the sadist says, beat me. And the masochist says, no. Anyway. Oh, right, so seriously, uncomfortable. Right, so for me, there's a certain amount of discomfort that I'll accept before it becomes not fun.
Yeah.
And that fluctuates depending on, it's on a sliding scale, So if I'm on a big expedition, I will accept sleep deprivation, eating rubbish food, being smelly, and being anxious of the rapids or whatever. I won't accept being scared, because being anxious and being scared are two separate things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you expand on that?
Yeah, I'm pleased you asked that. So for me, and this is my understanding, and I'm not saying it's your understanding, I'm not saying it's the listener's understanding, it's my understanding. When you're anxious, you can see there is a possible future where it's all rainbows and light and pixie dust and fairies and it's all good. How you get to that space, you may be unsure of, but you know that space is there. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Fear takes away the pixie dust and the magical unicorns and the light and the rainbows and all that. Fear disables that thought process, and you either freeze, you panic, or you fight. And we know that, fight or flight or freeze, don't we?
Yeah.
And that's what fear does to you. Fear takes away the possibility of there being a possible outcome, a possible positive outcome. Yeah, does that make sense? Whereas anxiousness, whilst we can, and I'm not talking about people that have anxiety attacks here, this is a different use of the term, But when you're anxious, you know there is a possible future where it's all, pixies, rainbows, and it's nice and the sun shines and there's palm trees and margaritas. But you don't know how to get there. Okay. Yeah. And the anxiousness is dealing with that map on how you get to paradise, as it were. And you should have enough skills to get you to navigate through that space of the unknown. Because if we take the unknown step by step, we break it down step by step, we can get through it.
Yep.
Whereas if we try and take it on as a whole, we can't do it. It daunts us. So if we look at a long rapid, if we work backwards from our line of sight to where we are and break down the moves backwards, not forwards, then that takes away a part of the anxiousness because we've put a plan in place to deal with that. And the more we do that, the greater we can go in that stage of being anxious because we can deal with everything that comes along. We don't have to think, for example, on a multi-day trip, say 7 days solo trip in the Himalayas. I don't have to think of day 7 when I'm on day 1.
Yeah.
I just think of day 1. And I don't have to think of 24 hours of day 1. I don't even have to think of an hour of day 1 or half an hour of day 1. I can just think of the next few minutes of day 1. And then once I get to the safe spot, another few minutes of day 1 and another and another and another and so on and so on and so on. I work on what I like to call an emergency door or fire door principle.
All right. Okay.
So, when you're going to a restaurant or you're going to a bar, for those people that are listening and the COVID's all disappeared, this will be a normal thing, but during COVID times, you have to use your memory. So if you can remember the days when you went to nightclubs and bars and you went into coffee shops and restaurants, as you walk through the main door, one of the first things you look out for is your exit, especially if you're the sort of person like me that's been brought up around risk assessments and looking at stuff like that. So when you're sitting down, you're like, where do I go if there's a bar fight in this pub? Which sort of tells you the sort of pubs I would drink in if I was. I don't drink, but if I was a drinker, where I would drink. What sort of, or if you go to a restaurant, where is the fire escape if there's a fire in the kitchen? Especially if it's one of those places where they've got an open kitchen and you can see the flames, you might be like, where's the fire door? So using that principle, when you paddle a river, each eddy you can make is almost like an emergency fire door, and you can get out of the river at those stages if it's too much for you. Obviously, if you're in a canyon, that doesn't work. So the rapid further down where the canyon breaks is your fire door, but how you navigate to that spot is like moving around a bar fight. Without, if you've seen, is it 1,000 million ways down the west? Something like that. There's a western, it's Liam Neeson's in it, and there's a lot of bar fights in it. But how you navigate around that without getting your head smashed in and getting out, it's the same sort of principle, really, isn't it? Yeah. I'm just talking rubbish, but it's going to fill some time, and I'm pleased that people that are not as mad as me might listen to this. That's quite nice.
It's fascinating to hear this sort of stuff, though. Like, I don't think you've got a very good way of coming up with analogies. As I was saying to you before, Darren, I do my little bits of research before doing, listen to your podcasts and the stuff that you've done on YouTube, and then all the stuff that you've done before you started those projects. Yeah. And you've got a really good way of trying to break things down or communicate something can be quite complex in such an easily manageable way, which someone like me can just understand and go, yeah, that is actually relatable, and I can understand how that actually makes sense now in relation to a bar fight.
It's true, it's exactly true. I mean, how you navigate a river is exactly how you get out of a bar fight. Especially if you're an English person, maybe a tourist person paddling the Trewin in Bala, and you end up going into the Goat by mistake because you won't be able to navigate that bar fight, I imagine.
Like, to be honest, the first time I went down the Trewerin, I hadn't long been doing paddling. So you know how early on I was asking, like, so when do you know you're ready? I knew I was ready, or wasn't ready, very early on. So early on, I had no right to be on that water. Like, thankfully I was with people that definitely were able to help. But like, fascinating. So all this stuff aside, so I want to ask about how you found yourself doing, like, some of the media work that you've done as well.
Okay, then, yeah.
So you found yourself working as, here we go, I've got to try and, like, logistically, like, sorting out the expedition side of things for, like, like Nissan, Steve Backshall, and like, how do you in those?
The Nissan thing sort of fell on me. There's a company called Lost Earth, I think it is. I can't remember. And I was in Nepal. They needed a kayaker to do some work on filming for the new Qashqai, Nissan Qashqai advert. They needed a kayaker to sort of be there, so I ended up doing that. It's quite nice. I should have charged them more money, actually, but that was fine. And then how did I end up working with Steve? I ended up working with Steve by luck, to be honest. A couple of years back now, obviously, it was 18 months ago that we filmed it. 2 years ago. So, and a friend of mine, Steve had tweeted, whatever he tweeted, I can't remember. And then a friend of mine called Dr. Amy Jane Beer, who you can Google, everyone. You can buy her book as well. Her and her husband wrote a book. She's written quite a lot of books herself, but they've written a book on camping called Movable Feasts. She's very good. But she replied to Steve's tweet and tagged me into the tweet because it was about kayaking in the Himalayas. And I just wrote to Steve and said, "This is me. I don't think Amy was trying to spam you. This is me. This is my bio. Just so you know, this is me, and it's not some sort of spam." And then I got an email off him about 6 months later that said, "Oh, that's cool. I am planning a trip to Bhutan. I don't suppose you could help out with it." And I said, "Well, yeah, I can do your logistics on that, and I can paddle it. I can find all your rivers and la 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 la." And I was in Nepal at the time, and he was like, "Right, can we have a meeting in a couple of weeks?" I said, "Yeah, we can. Only thing is, I'm in Kathmandu, and you're in London, so that might be quite tricky." And he said, "Well," I said, "I'll tell you what, I'm flying to Chile in the first week of December." I said, "So I'm flying through Heathrow. So maybe I could meet you in Heathrow when I fly through Heathrow."
Okay, yeah.
And I said, "I've got an overnight. I'm staying in one of the hotels just outside the airport." I said, that was a hell of a commute, by the way. I went Bhutan, Kathmandu, Delhi, London. And then I went into Toronto, then Santiago. But I met him in Starbucks. Long stories, I met him in Starbucks just outside Heathrow, early morning, jet lagged and smelly and what have you. And we sat down and he went, "Can you sort this in Bhutan? Can we do this? And this was December time. And I said, "Yeah, no dramas. Just fire me an email off. I'm sure we can sort it out. And if I can't fix it, somebody else can fix it that I know, and we'll work together and we'll fix it and it'll be fine." And I went to Chile and did my stuff in Chile. And then I got back, and Easter time, I went over to Bhutan, mapped out some rivers, and because Bhutan it's been kayaked a lot as Bhutan, but there are still some first descents available-ish. And me and my friend Chencho Drukpa drove around Bhutan looking at these first descents that'd be suitable for Steve to do the documentary on, with Pringle and Sal and Chencho's and Saint Chotak and what have you. And every river we got to, we'd spend a couple of days talking to the villagers. We had kayaks on the roof of the truck. And we're like, "Oh, we might paddle this river." And we'd hang out with the locals. And then somebody somewhere would say, "Oh, no, we saw a kayaker here back in 1984. Or we saw a kayak here in 2000. Or every river we went to. So we're like, "Oh, okay. So that's not a first descent then. Okay, that's not a first." And we worked our way across Bhutan doing that. We spent 3 weeks going from river to river to river to river, doing risk assessments, and then going, "Actually, that's not a first descent," and so on and so on and so on. And that took us back to the river that we actually filmed on. that made a documentary.
Yeah.
And then we put that in place, and that filmed in the November. So I did a full Nepal season, working with Pure Land, and then Sal flew into Nepal with me, and then we both flew out into Bhutan and did this trip with Steve, and then flew back home, back to Britain. So that's how that happened, and it's just a job, isn't it? It sounds really cool, but it's just a job. And the fact that the camera gear that, people are having and using is more expensive than my house is probably a little bit scarier than the fact that we run in the river. And the fact that Steve, as you guys will know, if you have seen the footage, which everyone has, Steve goes for a little dip and you can hear me screaming from the bank. I'm not, while I am worried about Steve, I'm more worried about his camera, because his camera's cost more than my house, like I say. So that does add a bit, that adds a bit more pressure, doesn't it? But no, it's still a good fun, isn't it? You can organise trips for camera crews, and you can organise trips for people that are paying for you to take them across the Himalayas, and the organisations are almost identical. When it comes to permits, when it comes to organising food, when it comes to organising tents, when it comes to organising logistics, hotels, it's almost identical. So yeah, and that was good. And then I've actually just today, this is exciting. There's a film project that I know I can talk about, which is really awesome, that I should be filming. Now lockdown's easing a bit, I should be filming about the first week of August, I imagine. And that's going to be in Britain. So I don't need to fly anywhere for that one. Just got to travel in Britain. Woo! So I might have to have a shave and a haircut for that one. So we'll have to see.
Maybe. I like that you're like, maybe I'll have it.
Yeah, I mean, I try and shave every now and then.
Right, wow, like there's just so many different things. Like, so I'm conscious of times. Like, if you still
you just keep talking. I'm fine. I got no else to do.
In that case, brilliant. In that case, what I'll do is I'll ask you like some questions, which I do for all the other people, like some quick fire-ish questions. I always say quick fire-ish because invariably we tend to go off on tangents anyway, and that's absolutely fine. Cool. So here we go, quick fire-ish questions. Favorite outdoor space?
Ooh, I need to think about the answer. Favorite outdoor space, Battyford Canal.
Yeah. So that again.
Battyford Canal.
Okay, yeah.
Battyford Canal is a canal that is just outside Murfield. Murfield in West Yorkshire. It's where I did my 1-star when I was in the Scouts. And when I joined the canoe club, which is Pennine Canoe Club, it's where we did our canoe polo training and a lot of our training. So without Battyford Canal, I wouldn't be kayaking.
Brilliant.
I just wouldn't. Yes, it's an industrial canal. It flows into Dewsbury eventually, called the Hebble Navigation. It's got some shocking graffiti on it, but it's a place that I wouldn't exit. I wouldn't have my career without that canal.
Yeah. What great answer. That's a complete curveball. I was thinking, I'll get because obviously you've been to all these like stunning locations, or what people typically deem as stunning, and yeah, like to come out of that, I was like, it makes a lot of sense. It makes complete sense, actually, the importance of where we start off, because that obviously
and that's important, isn't it? It's really important, and it's important to connect with that space. It's not. Obviously, my career has taken me around the world, principally the Himalayas, but, we can rattle off the names, Nepal, India, Ladakh, Bhutan, Tibet, Pakistan, we rattle up Chile, Canada, Alaska, we can rattle up Norway, we can keep going. But we have to look at where we put our first steps into this sport, whether it be kayaking or whether it be hill walking or camping or however we did that. We have to connect with that space, because without connecting to that, we can't move forward. Because that's important to where we are and where we develop as professionals.
Yeah.
I think if we develop our outdoor love independently of academia, it makes a difference. Like a lot of people do outdoor ed degrees and then go on to work in the outdoor industry. And then some people have a love of the outdoors and are professionals and didn't go to do an outdoor ed degree. And I think it's important that we, especially as these types of courses get more popular, that we do connect with the spaces that allow us to connect. like I say, to our history and why we do this sport. Do we do this sport because we love the sport we do or the job we do, or do we do it for work?
Yeah.
I think it's important that we connect in those spaces.
Yeah, that's an important question in itself, really, isn't it? But why it is that we do it and do this sort of stuff. I can definitely know what there's a part of it I can't resist. I'm definitely going to say it. So I can imagine someone in the background just going, trust a Yorkshireman to say Yorkshire as the favourite place to be.
There's no other place. There's no other place.
No one exists, it's fine.
It doesn't exist, especially if you're Lancashire. I don't want to hear from anybody at Lancashire.
That's it. Everyone's just going to be like, no, Lancashire's the best place. Nowhere else.
It's not, right, look at this. What's the most important? What's the most important meal of the week?
What's the most important meal of the week?
Yeah, Sunday dinner, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have Yorkshire puddings on a Sunday? You do, don't you?
You're right.
You do. Yeah. Most important meal of the week. Most important pudding. Yeah. You don't get your Lancashire hot pot on a Sunday, do you?
And that is where, like, all the people in Lancaster just tune off. They just go,
yeah,
no,
you just lost half your audience.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, let's have the next question.
Go on. Favourite piece of gear?
Ooh, I like that one. I have got a massive stove fetish at the moment.
Stove fetish?
Yeah. COVID's done it to me. I'm not talking Argos. I'm talking like camping stoves.
Yeah.
But COVID's done it for me. I keep buying new ones every week and then trying them out. I'm going to do a plug for a product. Is that all right?
Yeah, 100%.
There's a product called a Speedster stove, ultra lightweight backpacking spirit burner, and there's a product called a polymath stove, which is a lightweight spirit burner, much lighter weight than Trangiers. They're super tiny. They're about the size of a Vaseline tub. I'm not endorsed by these products. I buy them. I really like them. But they're not my favourite bits of outdoor kit in the world. My favourite bit of outdoor kit in the world is my Cockatatt Gore-Tex dry suit that I would normally live in for at least 6 months a year in India. I wear it every day. I've had it nearly 10 years and it's still dry. I paid pictures of dead presidents. I bought it in the States. So there was a lot of pictures of dead presidents I had to hand over to get it. But it's a really good bit of kit. I don't want to go back to using another brand. I think it's the best product on market, and I will happily pay the money for it. It's a great bit of kit, and I won't give it. I paid for it, you know.
Yeah. No, I think like it says a lot about a product when the people that use it a lot just go, yeah, hands down, that is it. Brilliant.
Yeah, pay for it, use it. You know, it's a good product. It's a dark green colour. It's like a lighting, like a moss green, which is not ideal. I would have preferred a red or a yellow, but it's a good bit of kit. It's fine. It makes a really good bit of kit.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So, a good instructor, well, obviously in this case, guide, but a good instructor always has. Like, try and finish that sentence.
Syphilis.
I'm not sure, like, they picked up on the audio, but like, there's me just going, did he just say what I think?
Yeah, no, I'm obviously joking. A good instructor or guide should have a broad knowledge of interpersonal relationships, because how to build rapport and how to connect with people, because you can be the best instructor in the world. You know, you can be a climber or a camper or bushcraft or kayaker, mountain biker, but if you can't relate to your audience, then your job's wasted.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm good at this stuff. I'm not saying anybody's good at this stuff, but you need to know how to build relationships with the people that are on your trips. People could be anxious, people can be scared, people can have personal issues that they're not telling you about. Uncertainty, and if you are literally just putting people in harnesses and getting them to climb or abseil, and you're not connecting with those people, you've lost them. They're never going to come back into the sport maybe they'll taste a session canoeing on a lake. If you can't connect with people, they're going to go home cold, wet, and miserable. But if you can connect with people and understand what their needs are of that session, they're going to leave happy, and they might even stay and enjoy the sport that you're trying to teach. Because we all know, don't we, that the outdoors is not necessarily about climbing that crag or camping in that hill or walking 10 miles or whatever it may be. It's about what happens inside emotionally. And if we can connect with our audience in a way that allows them to develop and grow, then we've done our job. And if we negate that, and all we really do is put people in harnesses or put them on mountain bikes or whatever that may be, we're not doing our job. Our job is not about the activity itself, it's about the journey within the activity.
Yeah.
So that's really important.
Yeah, no, I think you're so right, and I think that's going back a little bit to like remember what started our own personal journeys. Like, I think for me, it was one of the reasons was about that development and seeing the potential that this has to engage with people, but also like to see those journeys or help people on their journeys on their own development, which I think is something which is maybe glossed over a little bit sometimes in some of the discussions that I have anyway.
Yeah,
like,
it's a tricky one.
Go into it on a deeper level.
Yeah.
So yeah. Hey, Darren, thank you so much.
Is that it?
Yeah, I'm afraid that's it. I'm afraid. Sorry. We can keep talking anyway, mate.
I was going to tell you a joke.
I'm worried. But you know what? Let's go for it.
I've been doing some research on COVID. Yeah.
Okay.
And it seems ants can't get it.
Ants can't get it?
Do you know why?
Why is that?
They've got little antibodies.
Wow. I mean, all these outdoor instructors are going to be like stealing that.
Okay, well, let's do some outdoor instructor jokes. What's brown and sticky? What's brown and sticky?
I don't know what's brown and sticky.
Stick. What's brown, sticky and runs around the field?
I've no idea.
Fence.
Say that again?
Fence. What's big purple and eats people?
I don't know.
Or people eater?
Yes, that would.
What's one of them?
I did one of them.
Perfect.
Yes, got one.
What's a worm do?
I don't know. What does a worm do?
Goes on the floor like that. Now, for those of you that are listening to this and not watching that,
I forgot that this is a podcast. And
yeah, I just put my hand in a sort of worm formation.
The visual elements to this. Yeah. Sorry, folks.
Well, that's all right. I do apologize, but I'll just describe it. I mean, if you've got to describe a joke, it's not funny. Things we've missed out on. So should we do a things we've missed out on section?
All right.
The fact I went to school with a 7-7 bombers. I missed out on that one. I've not told you about that.
Okay.
The fact that my dad was late for his train and he was supposed to be on the train that blew up, I missed that one as well. I missed out on the fact that I've thrown I can't get my words out here. Thrown firecrackers at bears. That's quite exciting. I've put kayaks onto the outside of float planes and flown them around stuff. What else have I done? I've done quite a lot of stuff, but it's not that important, really. None of it's important. You know?
Do you get people like? Do you have people that have not met you and then just go? They just don't believe you.
I don't believe people don't know who I am, though.
So they just 100%. Everyone knows you.
I should hope so. I mean, look at me.
There you go, team. No one needs to Google anymore.
I don't care, to be honest. I don't care. I used to have when I was younger, I'd have a big thing that people needed to know about the stuff I'd done.
Yeah.
You know, and then now as I get older, I'm not super bothered. But I do tell people, because if I don't tell people, then I tend not to get free stuff.
Yeah, I can see.
Which brings me to a lovely end to this podcast, really. The fact that I do hate sponsorship. I have been lucky enough in the past and currently to be gifted some product, which is very nice. You know, everywhere from having a free car to drive around Alaska to I don't pay for my boat really, and I don't pay for my dry top and my PFD and stuff like that. But it's a bit of a double-edged sword because you've got to prostitute yourself a little bit and tell people what you're doing in order to get the kickback that you get the free product. Having said that, I only get free product for the products that I would buy anyway. So for the last 2 years, I've been really lucky as I've ordered product from supplier, and I asked for an invoice with it, and the invoice has always arrived with 000 on the bill.
Amazing.
Really nice. So it's kind of sponsorship, but without the sponsorship tag, which is very nice. And,
right.
But it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter as long as you get out and you're having fun and you're paddling with your mates, or you're climbing with your mates, or you're going running. Whatever you do, don't do what I've just done this last week and start trail running.
Don't take up trail running.
No. If there's anybody listening to this podcast and you're a trail runner, I blame you all. I blame the lot of you. I started trail running last week. My goal was to do 5k. That's all I wanted to do. 5k, and I could stop. I'm 44. I don't need to keep running. And within 3 days, I did 7k. And then I did 11k at the weekend. And then people tell me I should buy one of these running vests and Lycra leggings.
Okay, yeah.
If you also and have Strava as well. Like if they say you've got to have Strava. So if anybody ever sees me on social media with a running vest on, Lycra capri, whatever they are, pants on, and or posting Strava pictures, if you see me do that, just punch me, please. Like, kick me between the legs or slap me. I don't care, because I'm not doing it. All right. So if anybody sees me Stravaing or with cut off leggings and a running vest on, just if I can run in me like Bermuda shorts and my Star Wars t-shirt, I'll be happy. But if I've got to start buying product, I'm not bothered.
I think I made a point once to people that I worked with. It's like, don't need like loads of like. It's nice to have the kit. It's nice to have the kit, but like. I made the point, it's like they're all like taking ages trying to get ready. It's like, come on, let's go out, let's go for a run. And I'm just going, like, why are they all taking so long? Like I'd have had to go and collect all my kit from like down the road and come back. And I was like, I'm not bothered with all that. It's like, I'm ready to go. I've got legs with me right now. I can just go. Let's do this. However, having said that, I was definitely wearing like a cotton t-shirt, jeans, and like like skater shoes, like big floppy things. Well, I was a mess by the end of it, but proved that I could do it.
Well, I could tell you, talk about the correct gear.
Whether I regret it or not, but like it's made a story for myself. But
that's what life's about, stories, though, isn't it? It's about telling stories, and don't let the truth get in the way of a good one. Which I'm going to leave you on. Can I leave you on a story? I know we said we were going 5 minutes since, but I want to tell you another story.
Go on, mate. Yeah, let's
so I'll tell you about the first time I did Crib Goch.
No, go for it.
I will do. So I used to work at YHA Penna Pass, which is, I went back actually a couple of months back. I had a client in there. So anyway, I was working the night shift, Penna Pass, and Dan Bailey, who I think he edited Walker magazine or Trail magazine, something like that. I can't remember, one of the magazines. Anyway, he's my colleague, and he comes back from the pub at 11:30 at night, in the days when the hostel closed at 11:30. So, and it's a full moon. And Dan said, a few pints to the wind.
Yeah.
Why don't we go up Crib Goch? Now, I'd never done Crib Goch, and it's 11:30 at night. And he went, why don't we just have a quick blast up Crib Goch, and then you'll be back home, we can lock up and we'll do breakfast shift at 7. Yeah, go on there. So I'll just nip to my room and put my shoes on. He goes, no, you'll be all right in your flip-flops. All right, Dan. He says, you might want your jacket because it might be nippy. So I had my fleece jacket. And then while I'm doing that, and I apologise to the YHA for this, but Dan liberated some apples out of the fruit bowl. and we had 2 apples each and went up Cribgoch.
Yeah.
Obviously, we get there just after midnight, don't we, from Penna Pass, in flip-flops. Yeah, he was a few pints to the wind, and got back that early, well, about 1ish, I guess, 2ish, something like that. Went to bed and started work the following day. That's my first time I did Cribgoch. Very foolish, don't do it in flip-flops in the dark, everyone. But as long as it's not on Instagram or Facebook or even on like a podcast, then nobody knows how reckless I was in my youth.
Yeah, that's it. As long as people don't listen to this, then...
Exactly. Well, we said we were going 5 minutes ago, so people probably logged off. That's all right.
Well, we've already established that no one from Lancashire is going to listen to this bit anyway, so... Darren, thank you so much for this chat, mate. I really appreciate it. Really, like, face smiling so much. So good.
No
yeah, so with all this stuff, I'll make sure there's links to everything that we've talked about and where to find Darren. Although, like, you don't even have to Google him, apparently. Like, you should just know who he is. No, don't do that. There's definitely show notes. There's links in the show notes. Make sure to check out his stuff and support him. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, all that sort of stuff. But until next time, thank you very much, Darren. And yeah, take care. As
you can tell, as always, I've really enjoyed this chat. It was a proper laugh. So yeah, thanks again, Darren. As I mentioned at the start of this, there are show notes. There's lots of links in the description, so if you want to follow anything up, then just head to there first. If you're interested in taking part in an outdoor instructor chat yourself, or you've got other questions that you'd like to put towards other outdoor instructors, then please just drop me a message. It would be great to hear from you. As always, really appreciate the support. Make sure to give this podcast a like, share it with other outdoor instructors, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. But yeah, thanks again, as always, team. And until next time, take care.